Hi everybody, so we're mid-September now and I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. I set myself a little bit of a TBR, which quite unusual for me, as you know. I don't often set TBRs because often I can't keep to them. I fancy something different. But I gave myself quite a wide choice and I've read quite a few of those already and just left with three choices. So what I thought we'd do today, something a bit different. So you know I have my Friday reads and when I have those I usually feature some short story collections and I'll read out a short story or two. What I thought with this is I'd like you all to help me to choose which of these three, because they're all, well, one's quite chunky, to see which is the final book that I read in September. I'm still finishing A Song for Tomorrow, Alice Peterson. And I'm doing another Poirot buddy read with the lovely Cheryl from CR Flames Fab. Already done a buddy read with my lovely friend Kerry Ann, and we'll talk about more of that in the wrap up. So I thought, yeah, let me do a little bit of a read out. First chapter, a bit like the first chapter tag, except I'll read it out to you guys, and I'd like you all to choose which of these three books I read last in September. So here we go. I'll show you the three books that I've chosen, probably all very similar genres. So we've got The Heir by Kiera Class. That is book 4 in the selection series. I've already read books 1, 2 and 3, and this is then, I believe, their daughter. We've got The Six of Crows, Leigh Bardugo. Sorry, Mr. Bardugo. No, actually, it's a lady. It's Leigh, L-E-I-G-H. Sorry, Leigh Bardugo. I just can't say it. Bardugo. Very widely spoken about on BookTube. This was sent to me by Mel from Mel's Bookish Adventures, and we send each other a book every month that we think each other might like to try. And then the last one, which I got on a recent haul, is Secondborn, and this is by Amy A. Bartol, and so they're the three. Let's see if we can hold them up for you all. See if we can get that in there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to read a chapter. And please let me know down in the comments below which would be your selection for me to read. So, The Heir, it's book 4 of the selection series. I really enjoyed that series, so here we go. We'll see what this brings. I could not hold my breath for 7 minutes. I couldn't even make it to 1. I once tried to run a mile in 7 minutes, and after hearing some athletes could do it in 4, but failed spectacularly when a side stitch crippled me about halfway in. However, there was one thing I managed to do in 7 minutes that most would say is quite impressive. I became queen. By 7 tiny minutes I beat my brother Heir into the world, so the throne that ought to have been his was mine. Had I been born a generation earlier, it wouldn't have mattered. Heir was the male, so Heir would have been the heir. Alas, Mum and Dad couldn't stand to watch their firstborn be stripped of a title by an unfortunate, but rather a lovely set of breasts. So they changed the law, and the people rejoiced. It's not sounding like the writing at all in this section. And I was trained day by day to become the next ruler of Ilia. What they didn't understand was that their attempts to make my life fair seemed rather unfair to me. I tried not to complain. After all, I knew how fortunate I was. But there were days or sometimes months when it felt like far too much was being piled upon me. Too much for any one person, really. I flipped through the newspaper and saw that there had been yet another riot, this time in Zuni. 20 years ago, Dad's first act as king was to dissolve the castes, and the old system had been phased out slowly over my lifetime. I still thought it was completely bizarre that once upon a time people lived with these limiting but arbitrary labels on their backs. Mum was a 5, Dad was a 1. It made no sense, especially since there was no outward sign of the divisions. How was I supposed to know if I was walking next to a 6 or a 3? And why did that even matter? When Dad had first decreed that the castes were no more, people all over the country had been delighted. Dad had expected the changes he was making in Ilia to be comfortably in place over the course of a generation, meaning any day now everyone should click and everything should click into place. That wasn't exactly happening, and this new riot was just the most recent in a string of unrest. "Coffee, Your Highness," Nina said, setting the drink on my table. "Thank you, you can take the plates." I scanned the article. This time a restaurant was burnt to the ground because its owner refused to promote a waiter to the position of chef. The waiter claimed that a promotion had been promised but was never delivered, and he was sure it was because of his family's past. Looking at the charred remains of the building, I honestly didn't know whose side I was on. The owner had the right to promote or fire anyone he wanted, and the waiter had the right not to be seen as something that technically didn't exist anymore. So, that's a little bit. I must say, so far, it's not got quite the same pull towards it as I think the selection did. Let me know what you think. Next, 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Let's have a look what this one's about. Don't know too much about it really, because as I say, it wouldn't normally be my genre. I think it's dystopian. We'll see. Juiced had 2 problems, the moon and his moustache. He was supposed to be making his rounds at the Hold House, but for the last 15 minutes he'd been hovering around the southeast wall of the gardens, trying to think of something clever and romantic to say to Anya. If only Anya's eyes were blue like the sea, or green like an emerald. Instead her eyes were brown, lovely, dreamy, melted chocolate brown. Rabbit fur brown. Oh no, I don't think rabbit fur brown's quite the thing. Just tell her she's got skin like moonlight, his friend Pietro had said. Girls love that. A perfect solution, but the Ketterdam weather was not cooperating. There'd been no breeze off the harbour that day, and a grey milk fog had reefed the city's canals and crooked alleys in damp. Even here among the mansions of the Gelstraat, the air hung thick with the smell of fish and bilge water, and smoke from the refineries on the city's outer islands had smeared the night sky in a briny haze. The full moon looked less like a jewel than a yellowy blister in need of lancing. Charming. Maybe he could compliment Anya's laugh, except he never heard her laugh. He wasn't very good at jokes. Juice glanced at his reflection in one of the glass panels set into the double doors that led from the house to the side garden. His mother was right. Even in his new uniform, he still looked like a baby. Gently he brushed his finger along his upper lip. If only his moustache would come in. It definitely felt thicker than yesterday. He'd been a guard in the Stadwatch less than 6 weeks, and it wasn't nearly as exciting as he'd hoped. He thought he'd been running down thieves in the Barrel or patrolling the harbours, getting first look at cargo coming in on the docks. But ever since the assassination of that ambassador at the town hall, the Merchant Council had been grumbling about security. So where was he? Stuck walking in circles at some lucky merchant's house. Not just any merchant, though. Councilman Hode was about as high-placed in Ketterdam government as a man could be. The kind of man who could make a career. Juiced adjusted the set of his coat and rifle, and patted the weight and baton at his hip. Maybe Hood would take a liking to him. Sharp-eyed and quick with the cudgel, Hood would say, "That fellow deserves a promotion." "Sergeant Juiced Van Pole," he whispered, savouring the sound of the words. "Captain juiced Van Pole. Stop gawking at yourself, juiced World, cheeks going hot as Henk and Rooter strode into the side garden. They were both older, bigger and broader of shoulder than Juiced, and they were house guards, private servants of Councilman Hood. That meant they wore his pale green livery, carried fancy rifles from Novia Gem, and never let Juice forget he was a lowly grunt from the City Watch. Petting that bit of fuzz isn't going to make it grow any faster, Roocher said with a loud laugh. Juice tried to summon some dignity. I need to finish my rounds. Roocher elbowed Henk. That means he's going to stick his head in the Grisha workshop to get a look at his girl. Oh, and you won't use your Grisha magic to make my moustache grow, Henk mocked. Henk mocked? There's all these Henks and honks and mocks. Henk mocked. Juice turned on his heel, cheeks burning, and strode down the eastern side of the house. They'd been teasing him ever since he'd arrived. If it hadn't been for Anya, he probably would have pleaded with his captain for a reassignment. He and Anya only ever exchanged a few words on his rounds, and she was always the best part of his night. And he had to admit, he liked Hode's house. The few peeks he'd managed through the windows. Hode had one of the grandest mansions on the Gedstrat. Floors set with gleaming squares of black and white stone. Shining dark wood walls lit by brown glass chandeliers that floated like jellyfish near the coffered ceilings. Sometimes Juice liked to pretend that this was his house, as he was a rich merchant, just out for a stroll through his fine garden. So that's a little taster from Six of Crows. And then finally, Secondborn, Amy Bartol. Let's have a look at chapter 1 here. It's called The Crown of Swords. I trail my mother, her personal assistant and 4 public relations specialists as they retreat towards the bevelled glass doors of St. Sismode Palace. Clara, the newest PR assistant, hands Othala. Why do these books always have all these difficult names? Hands Othala a glass of water, waits for her to sip it and takes it back from her. Fumbling, she spills some on herself. Clara's sparkling moniker, the holographic symbol that projects up from the back of her hand, shines like crystal as she dabs at the water droplets with a lacy handkerchief. She's a diamond, I think. She won't last here among the sword aristocracy. I feel a twinge of pity. It's not as if Clara ever had a choice. She's secondborn. She was placed in this den of lions, and if she fails, it will be long fall. Females who don't make it in their secondborn transition positions usually end up in the entertainment sector. I shuddered. She'd probably become a plaything for some firstborn officer. Clara teeters on her elegant high heels and tries to keep up with my mother's rapid pace. As we enter the mansion, my eyes are drawn to the stone pediment above the doors. I wonder if Clara even notices the ancient warriors carved above the frieze, or that our name, St. Sismode, is etched upon the swords of the soldiers. Does she realise that St. Sismode has been the clarity of the fate of swords since anyone can remember? Let them try to criticise me for the draft now, Mother says. She places over the midnight blue carpet embellished with the golden fusion blade called a St. Sismode sword, after our ancestor who designed it. Pausing on the point of the carpet's woolly blade, she hooks herself in victory. No clarity of any fate has ever given more than I have. She turns to Emmett Stone, her personal assistant. He's glowing with pride. Your fate loves you, Emmett gushes, adding flamboyant applause. And all of the 9 fates love you. They do, don't they? Othala smooths her black hair, losing herself in the moment. If she were a cat, she would purr. June growls low. You don't have to do this, he says bitterly. Roselle's still too young. She's not ready for war. Othala sobers. She narrows her eyes at her assembled staff. Leave us. Clara, and Emmett nearly bump into each other in their hurry to the door. I turn to follow them out. "Stay, Roselle," June commands. I hesitate, looking to Mother for confirmation. She remains silent until the others have left, closing the bronze doors behind them, then whirls to face June. "It's done," she says, sneering. "You can undo it," June insists. "You can save Roselle." He is rigid with barely suppressed anger, except for one hand which twitches near the sword sheath at his waist. My eyes widen. I know this aggressive posture well. It's the stance he uses before he attacks. "You underestimate her," my mother replies. "She's resilient and capable of surviving whatever is thrown at her. She has my blood." "You will spill her blood." June's sand-coloured eyes narrow. He takes a menacing step towards Mother. My response is automatic. I move between the clarity and my mentor, as I've been trained to do. My hand rests on my own sword's hilt. I face June, my warning unmistakable. "You see?" June flicks his hand towards me. "She wants only to protect you, Athala. You have nothing to fear from her. You would never harm you or Gabriel. She loves you both." "And you care for her," Mother hisses. She walks around the golden silk settee, putting it between her and us. June grinds his teeth. "It's an accusation I don't fully understand." "Of course I care for her. Rosella's been my student since you could crawl." He rubs his hand over the short dark stubble of his new beard. "I've always treated her with the utmost respect." "Yes, you two are quite close. She looks at you like a father." "You and both I know how little interest her own father has taken in her." So that's Secondborn, Amy A. Bartol. So there are the 3 choices that I've got that I thought I'll maybe choose one of those for me to read the end week and a half that's left. About a week and a half, I think. Let me know in the comments down below, please, which you like the sounds of and which you'd like me to read, and the one with the most votes is the one that I shall finish. So, yes, please don't forget to subscribe, please don't forget to like, and loads and loads of comments please down below. As you know, I always answer everybody and it's lovely to hear from you all. So yeah, catch up with you soon. Bye for now.